Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today, in the continuing Will It Float series, I'm going to build a Collins Class Submarine. This is a 350th scale kit from Showcase Models Australia, which, as best I can tell, is no longer in business. This is probably the most Australian video I've done. It's an Australian subject by an Australian manufacturer, built by me, an Australian. Crikey! Anyway, the back of the box is where you'll find the instructions for this kit. It's not an overly complicated one, so it does fit pretty well on the back of the box. There are no instructions inside the box. However, inside the box, we do find some plastic. How strange and unexpected. There's one sprue for the main hull and control surfaces, and a bunch of other doodaddery. Everything looks pretty nice here. There aren't really a lot of detaily bits on the outside of a submarine, usually, so it isn't surprising that there's not a lot of parts in this kit. Not that that's a problem, of course. What is here is very neat and well moulded. About the only cleanup we're going to have to do is removing the nubbins when you clip the parts off the sprue. I'm obviously not a submarine surgeon, so I couldn't tell you if it's 100% accurate, but it looks the part to me anyway. There are also some clear parts. This here is a little display cradle, which is obviously good for displaying, but is also helpful while constructing the model, which makes sense when you consider that the bottom of the hull is rounded. You can't just sit it on the bench and expect it to stay there. For some reason, the conning tower is also a clear part, and it seemed like mine had been knocked off the sprue, but it didn't seem damaged, so it's probably fine. I've no idea why this is clear, there's no windows or anything like that, but it does look good, and that's what matters. A decal sheet is also included, and we get markings for all 6 of the Collins class here, including the decorations that were on Collins when it was launched. There is also a little bit of photo etch, but it's not really a part as such. It's a name plaque to fit the display stand, though it does seem they forgot part of the word submarine, and if it weren't for that, this would have been a piece of photo etch I'd be happy to use. Anyway, let's glue some bits of plastic together. I start by building the display stand, because as previously mentioned, the bottom of the hull is rounded, so it's not going to sit flat on the work surface. This is clear plastic, so if you want to keep it nice and clear looking, it's probably a good idea to not use plastic cement like I am. I will probably just paint it, so it doesn't really matter to me, but it might matter to you. It's pretty simple to put this together. The slots in the end parts don't go all the way through, so you've got to put them around the right way, but that should be pretty obvious when you try to do it wrong, like I did at first. We now have a display and construction stand, and it looks like it should do the job pretty well. Before gluing the hull together, we need to add this doodad to the propeller. I did initially put this around backwards. You want the larger beveled end of this to go into the propeller. This is very easy, and only a fool would make this mistake. It then goes into the opening in the rear of the hull like so. I'm sure it'll straighten out when you put the other part of the hull on, but I did nudge it to try and get it as straight as I could anyway. And then, I joined the 2 halves of the hull together. This was a really nice fit, and I was kind of surprised by that, if I'm being honest. It was a cheap kit, about 20 Australian dollars, so seeing a fit like this is a really nice surprise. Of course, it's not totally perfect. There is some mild gappage here and there, which you might want to fill and sand over, but it does also look pretty decent without any extra work. And here is why I built the display stand first. It's quite handy. I glue this top detail-y thing into place next. This is pretty easy, and it also hides a lot of the, admittedly, very minor join lines. There is a bit of a gap around this part, but I'm pretty sure that should be there. I follow that with the conning tower, and there's a nice guide for this to sit on, so positioning is very easy. Obviously I'm just using plastic cement here, and I can't think of any reason to try and avoid fogging up the clear plastic here. It's just going to be painted black anyway. The fit is good, and it already looks like a submarine. Next, I add the first of a bunch of antennas and pipes and whatever other doodads to the top of the conning tower. These are pretty simple to install. The challenge with them is really in cleaning them up. Removing the sprue nubbin without breaking the part can be a bit difficult, or at least mildly bothersome. While that was bonding, I add some control surfaces to the sides of the conning tower. I assumed these big fins move, but I positioned them so they lined up with the matching shape on the side of the tower. I then add this doodad to the front of the hull here. Obviously I've got no idea what it is, but it goes here and does whatever it's currently doing. Next I add the rest of the antennas and doodads. I've no idea what any of them do, but I assume the thickest one is the exhaust.
Why are you building a model of a submarine if you're not an expert on submarines, Herbert?
Because I like to break the law. All the things I said about the first antenna thing apply here too. The cleanup takes a bit of care, but installation is easy, though you'll probably have to do a bit of nudging to get everything all straight and neat. I then glue this bracket onto this long thin bit, which, as you might imagine, was also a bit fiddly to clean up. It goes here at the rear of the hull, and there's a couple of raised bits to indicate where the ends of the bracket should be attached. I would suggest attaching one leg of the bracket and then the other, rather than trying to get them both on at the same time. It does kind of look like there should be something attached to the end of this, but that's not the case. The 4 rear control surfaces are the final touch. There are 2 different parts here, 2 of each for a total of 4, at least according to the numbers on the instructions. I managed to mix the parts up, and then couldn't tell them apart, so I just put them on wherever. Well, not wherever, in the right places, just possibly in the wrong order. But it looks fine to me. It looks very submarine, and there's only one thing left to do. The very important, very scientific flotation test. And it did pretty much exactly what I was expecting it to do. It flops over onto its side, over and over and over again. If it had some sort of ballast in the bottom of the hull, it would probably stay upright, but that's not what we're doing here. I guess technically it does float, but certainly not in the way a Collins Class submarine should float. They did have their problems, but I don't think rolling over and floating on its side was one of them, at least not to my knowledge. It did float around for a few minutes here, and it didn't seem to take on any water, so I guess the result is a yes, it does technically float, but not in a realistic way, so take those very important results as you will. And now that the science is done, the 350th scale Collins Class submarine from Showcase Models Australia is now completed, and I think it's a rather nice model. In all honesty, I didn't really have high expectations for it, but I do like trying things, and I'd only vaguely heard of this company before. Pretty sure I saw this model on shelves somewhere, but didn't really think of buying it. I don't think me buying one submarine kit would have kept the company in business, but it is kind of a shame. More local manufacturers would be a good thing. Anyway, it's a nice model. I couldn't tell you how accurate it is, but it looks the part to me, and as an Australian that grew up in the 90s, it's kind of familiar, if that makes sense. Collins Class submarines were always in the news because of whatever problems they had. It was kind of a big deal, I guess. I don't really care about the performance of the real thing, but the kit is quite nicely made. The parts went together with no real hassles, and that made for a good relaxing build. A quick one too. The only problem I can really find with the kit is that the display plate is missing a couple of letters, and I had a sensible chuckle at that, and I don't think it's that much of a problem. So, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comments section below. If you'd like to watch me build kits like this one live, I stream modelling a couple of times a week both here on YouTube and on Twitch. There's a link in the description. Subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of thing, and if you really like what I do, consider supporting on Patreon or Ko-fi if you're able. Links for those are also in the description. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.